The Cheshire Family Murders. In 2007, the Petty family, Jennifer Hawke Petty and her 2 teenage daughters, were assaulted and murdered in their Connecticut home. The father, Dr. William Petty, was injured but managed to escape with his life before the perpetrators burned the house to the ground. 2 paroled burglars, Joshua Komisarjevsky and Stephen Hayes, targeted the family when Jennifer and her 17-year-old daughter Haley were at a grocery store. They followed them home and subjected them to brutal torture before killing them. Haley and her 11-year-old sister Michaela died through smoke inhalation as they were tied to their beds, and Jennifer died through strangulation. Details of the crime are shockingly unbearable, as it was revealed police were aware that the family were held as hostages but had spent too long securing the street rather than entering the home to help the family. The killers were sentenced to death, which was later changed to life imprisonment as Connecticut abolished capital punishment in 2012. The murder of Sylvia Likens. The brutal and cruel murder of Sylvia Likens still disturbs Indiana more than 50 years later. In 1965, police officers found the body of 16-year-old Likens laid on a filthy mattress. She was covered in more than 150 burns and cuts. It was clear at first that the young girl had starved to death, as she was little more than skin and bone. Later, it was found that she died of a brain hemorrhage and malnutrition. Mother of 7 Gertrude Banaszewski was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Likens' parents had paid Banaszewski $20 a week to care of her and their other daughter Jenny. Instead, Banaszewski allowed her own children to beat Likens and force her to eat feces. Attorney Natty Bumpo said, "A lot of people have compared this to Lord of the Flies. But that was just a bunch of uncontrolled children. In this case, they had an adult supervising what they were doing." Richard Speck slaughter. When Richard Speck entered South Chicago Community Hospital, where he methodically tortured and murdered 8 nurses, the state of Chicago changed forever. During the early hours of July 14, 1966, Speck led the nurses like lambs to the slaughter during an attack that lasted 5 hours. Distracted by his own killing spree, Speck didn't realize that one of his hostages had hidden under a bunk bed until the massacre was over. She then jumped from a window and ran for her life. All the victim recalled of Speck was his tattoo that read, "Born to Raise Hell." 2 days later, the cold-blooded killer arrived at County Cook Hospital following a suicide attempt, and a doctor recognized the tattoo from news reports. The assistant Cook County District Attorney said of the sadistic attacks, "It really was the first random mass murder of the 20th century." Cannibal Armin Meiwes. In 2001, Armin Meiwes from Germany posted an advert on the cannibalism fetish website The Cannibal Café, luring for a well-built 18 to 30-year-old to be slaughtered and then consumed. Many people replied to the advert, but all of them got cold feet apart from Bernd Jürgen Armando Brand. Throughout his childhood, Meiwes fantasized that if he were to eat someone, they would be with him forever, so he would never be lonely again. The videotape Meiwes made of himself dismembering Brand is stomach-churning, to say the least. Meiwes amputated the victim's penis and they both attempted to eat, but it was too chewy. Brand then took 20 sleeping pills to kill himself, but this was not a success and he slowly bled out from the amputation. Meiwes murdered Brand by slicing his throat and consumed the remains over a period of 10 months. He was sentenced to life imprisonment after stating to a psychiatrist that his fantasies of devouring people had not subsided. Kermit Gosnell's abortions. Twisted serial abortionist Kermit Gosnell performed late-term abortions in his unsanitary and unsafe clinics at the Women's Medical Society in West Philadelphia. He had owned the medical center since 1979, and complaints about his practice stretched back decades. In 2011, Gosnell was arrested on suspicion of murdering 7 infants who had at first survived his initial abortion attempts but later fell victim to his unspeakable evil. A grand jury heard that Gosnell was not an obstetrician or gynecologist, as he had failed to qualify. However, he was charging up to $3,000 for each late-term abortion. His staff members testified against him, detailing how they witnessed infants move or cry after he performed the termination, and the details of how he then ended their lives are deeply distressing. Gosnell was convicted on 3 counts of first-degree murder, including causing the death of 1 adult patient, 1 count of involuntary manslaughter, 21 felony counts of illegal late-term abortion, and 211 counts of violating the 24-hour informed consent law. Joseph Mengele's experiment. Twisted Nazi Dr. Joseph Mengele was known for his sinister medical experiments during World War II that mostly involved the horrific treatment of twins. In 1943 at Auschwitz, Mengele selected children for his deadly experiments. Renata Gutmann was a twin and Mengele survivor. In a haunting account, she recalls, "I was separated from my brother and mother and taken to a hospital where I was measured and x-rayed. Blood was taken from my neck. Once, I was strapped to a table and cut with a knife. I got injections that made me throw up and have diarrhea. While ill in the hospital after an injection, guards came in to take the sick to be killed. The total victim count is unknown, but witnesses revealed that Mengele killed as many as 14 twins in just one night through injecting chloroform into their hearts. After the war, he evaded prosecution by escaping to South America, where he died from a stroke aged 67 years old in 1979. Stay tuned for part 2 of Top 10 Horrific True Crime Cases You Should Never Web Search. We've only scratched the surface of these spine-tingling stories, and there's much more to uncover. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss it. The darkest mysteries are yet to come.